Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going to continue our cutting compound contest, and in particular we're going to look at the Chemical Guys V34 hybrid compound, and we'll take a look and we'll see if it breaks into our metals table here. And speaking of the metals table, this is the way it stands as of now. We have Sonex Cut Max Gold. Very close second is the 3D HD Cut Plus. We have Ardex in bronze. We have our consolation area with CarPro Clear Cut, the last cut, and Adams Correction Cream. We also have an out of left field section here, and the Wizard's Mystic Cut is going to take that because that hit me out of left field. I wasn't expecting it. It was a very pleasant surprise, and I recommend it. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the V34 hybrid compound. The V34 Optical Grade Hybrid Compound is designed for super hard paints and for coated vehicles. There is an 8-ounce version and a 16-ounce. The 8-ounce comes in at just under $10 and the 16-ounce at $17.99. The compound has micro-abrasive technology, no fillers whatsoever, so that means pretty much what you see is what you get after correcting. There are some compounds that we will test that do have fillers, and I will need an IP wipe. And if that's the case, I will do so during the testing here as well. Spreading a little dab of the compound out on the panel before we get started usually tells me a lot. And I can see the abrasives here. I can also feel them in my fingers, so it's going to be a high percentage that we're going to have some dusting. That's not always the case, but for most of the compounds that we test, that does happen. We're going to have 5 sections during this test of different sanding marks, starting with 2500 grit, running all the way down to 800, and we're going to make a return trip all the way back as well. And before I forget the fact that I do take these compounds out into the shop and do a few corrections. That's why some of these videos are spread 3, 4, and even 5 days apart. So if I have anything to add doing those corrections, I will do so during this testing. So far, what we've done so far, the testing has matched up perfectly with how the chemical corrects out in the field. If there needs to be a correction, I will do so. So we're down at the 1000 grit section here, and this is where a lot of the compounds start to fail a little bit. Some even start to fail in the 1500 grit. It's a very small percentage, but we'll see what happens. This section here, the 800 grit, not many of the compounds are designed to take care of this kind of damage, but it is very fun to see how many of the compounds make a great effort at it. Okay, I'm going to remove the residue, clean this panel completely. I'm going to remove the tape. We'll grab our Flex XFE 83-inch polisher. We have attached to it just a typical orange cutting pad, the same one we always have. I have 2 or 3 of these, pretty much exactly the same, ready to go. We're going to add a couple dabs onto the pad, spread it out, spread the compound out on each section equally, or as equal as I can possibly get it, and then we'll start our pass. Okay, starting at the 2500 grit, we're going to run all the way down through the 800 grit section. We're going to come back. Exact same speed, exaggerated arm movements. I have both hands just cradling and guiding the polisher. We just want a short throw polisher and just a regular cutting pad. We want the compound to do the work. We don't want to give the compound any kind of advantage with a long throw polisher or an aggressive microfiber cutting pad. We want to throw the bulk of the weight on the shoulders of the compound itself. I have the speed set at medium. Pressure is very light. I've learned quite a lot testing these compounds in the short amount of time I've been doing it. When it's not busy at the shop here and the guys can handle it, I'll jump right back into testing. As you'll see marks on this panel, I do have 4 or 5 coats of Global 1K Clear on about 5 or 6 panels, and we're going to be using those panels for this testing. I'm a little bit older than most of my peers in this industry, but still I love to learn, and I will continue to learn daily because the industry changes, and it's actually changing at a faster pace every day, and has been since the start of the last 5 to 10 years. It's really taken off, and I urge you guys to, when you have some downtime, just to do some testing. Test on different clears, different polishers, different machines, different chemicals. Never stop learning. Stay ahead of the game. Okay, that's going to do it. Let me put the polisher down. Give me a minute to grab the camera. We're going to come in close and see how the V34 has done. Okay, right off the bat, I can tell you there is substantial dusting, as I figured there would be, taking notice of the abrasives at the beginning of the test. But that's fine. We can control that. I'll teach you guys how to control it with a QED in a later video. So let's remove the residue, and that was quite easy to work with. So let's take a look at these sections one by one. All right, breezed right through the 2500 grit, and the 2000 grit did well. At the 1500 grit section, I actually had to stop because I took notice it was starting to fail just a little bit in this section. There's a small percentage of the compounds that will do that. This happens to be one of them. This is the 1000 grit, really starting to have trouble right here. And really had a hard time in this section here. I'm going to get as many angles using the light as I can. In the areas where it did well, there doesn't seem to be much hazing, which means the product can finish. And that's what it said on the label. And it also says it can work on hard clears. Well, it's going to have to be able to cut through 1500 and a little bit lower to work on harder clears, with my experience anyways, but that's just me. Let's get on with the last portion of this test. It's going to be the last two sections, the 800 grit, the 1000 grit. We're going to do some extended working time. I want to see how long the open time is for the product. I want to see its worst at its dusting, and I want to see if it can remove a little bit more of those marks in the last two sections. By the way, guys, and I'll keep bringing this up, but the top 3 performers that end up with the gold, silver, and bronze on the medals table will go head-to-head on a large panel I have set aside. We're going to see who's the champion. Okay, I worked on that little section extensively. The compound is spent, so give me a minute. I'm going to grab the camera, bring in close, and hopefully it's done a good job on these last two sections. Alright, again, a bit of dusting, and the section we've worked on is now just a coat of spent compound, which turns into a clear, oily film. It's easy to remove, especially with this, this compound here. And I'm going to bring you in close, and you'll take notice that the V34 just doesn't have the bite that some of our hard hitters at the top of the metals list does. It doesn't mean it's not good at removing light to moderate and then finishing for a good base to bring in like an ultra fine finishing polish, but it's definitely not a hard cutter. Okay guys, again, that was the Chemical Guys V34 Hybrid Compound Didn't quite have enough oomph to break into our metals table, but maybe it'll do better in our finishing series. We're going to pick that up when this leaves off. I'm going to leave a link down below in case you want to look further into the Chemical Guys V34. And speaking of our metals table, it will remain. We have Sonex Cut Max 3D HD Cut Plus. We have Ardex Hard Adit. We have our Constellation Area Carb Pro The Last Cut Atoms. And out of left field, the biggest surprise, Wizards. So again, I have to reiterate, if you're not worried about price, all these guys here, you could pick any one of them and you'll be very happy with them. This is Brian from Apex Detail. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. Catch you in the next video.